Welcome to the History AI podcast, where the past comes alive with facts, anecdotes, and a dash of humor. Here are your hosts, Chuck and Marco.
Welcome back, listeners, to another episode of the History AI podcast. I'm Chuck, and with me as always is Marco.
Hey everyone! We're excited to dive into today's topic, which is quite a controversial one. Today, we're talking about Che Guevara.
You know, Marco, this morning I saw someone wearing a Che Guevara shirt. It made me wonder, would they still wear it if they really knew about him?
That's a good question, Chuck. Che Guevara is a figure who evokes strong opinions. Some see him as a revolutionary hero, while others view him as a ruthless mass murderer. We're here to break down the facts and let you decide for yourself.
But before we dive in, a quick reminder to rate, subscribe, and share our podcast. A 5-star review really helps us reach more people and continue to grow. And remember, you can suggest topics through our social media. We love hearing from you.
Also, check out our new merchandise. There's a link in the show notes. Now, let's get into it. Ernesto Che Guevara was born on June 14, 1928, in Rosario, Argentina. His family was of Spanish, Basque, and Irish descent, and they were fairly well off. His parents, Ernesto Guevara Lynch and Celia de la Serna, were both progressive thinkers with a strong interest in politics. They instilled in young Ernesto a sense of social justice and a passion for literature and debate.
That's right. His father was an architect and his mother was a dedicated activist. Despite their relative affluence, Che's childhood was not without challenges. He suffered from severe asthma, which limited his activities but also forged his relentless determination and resilience.
Che was an avid reader from a young age. He devoured works by Marx, Engels, and other socialist thinkers, which shaped his early political views. However, it's interesting to note that despite his later life dedicated to fighting for the poor, there are numerous accounts of young Ernesto looking down on those less fortunate. His writings often reveal a certain disdain for people he considered inferior, both intellectually and socially.
One lesser-known fact about Che is that he initially enrolled in the University of Buenos Aires to study medicine. However, he lied about attending dental school to his friends and acquaintances, perhaps to embellish his credentials or to cover up his actual struggles and indecision during his early academic years.
His medical studies were interrupted by his decision to travel across Latin America, a journey that profoundly influenced his worldview. Alongside his friend Alberto Granado, Che embarked on a motorcycle journey that exposed him to the harsh realities of poverty, exploitation, and disease throughout the continent. This journey was pivotal, leading him to the conclusion that armed revolution was the only solution to the injustices he witnessed.
Despite these experiences, it's important to recognize that Che's early disdain for the poor didn't entirely disappear. Even as he became a revolutionary, his actions and writings often reflected a complex, sometimes contradictory attitude towards the very people he claimed to fight for.
These contradictions are a key part of understanding Che Guevara. On one hand, he was driven by a genuine desire to address inequality and oppression. On the other hand, his methods and personal prejudices often undermined the noble ideals he professed.
To understand Che Guevara's rise and influence, it's crucial to look at the broader world context and political climate of his time. The mid-20th century was a period of significant upheaval and transformation globally, especially in Latin America.
The aftermath of World War II left the world divided into two major ideological camps, the capitalist West, led by the United States, and the communist East, led by the Soviet Union. This division set the stage for the Cold War, a period of intense geopolitical tension, espionage, and proxy wars. Latin America became a critical battleground in this ideological conflict.
Many countries in Latin America were grappling with political instability, economic inequality, and social unrest. Dictatorships and authoritarian regimes were common, often backed by the United States as part of its strategy to prevent the spread of communism. These regimes frequently oppressed their populations, leading to widespread discontent and the rise of revolutionary movements.
In countries like Guatemala, Bolivia, and Cuba, the disparities between the wealthy elite and the impoverished masses were stark. Land reform and redistribution became rallying cries for many of these movements. Che Guevara, witnessing this firsthand during his travels, became increasingly convinced that radical, armed revolution was necessary to achieve social justice.
The Cuban Revolution, which Che would later become deeply involved in, was itself a product of these conditions. Cuba under Fulgencio Batista was marked by corruption, economic disparity, and a heavy U.S. influence. The rural poor and urban working classes were especially disenfranchised, creating fertile ground for revolutionary ideas.
Che's travels through Latin America exposed him to these harsh realities. In Guatemala, he witnessed the US-backed coup that overthrew the democratically elected President Jacobo Arbenz in 1954. This event had a profound impact on Che, reinforcing his belief that imperialist forces would always act to suppress genuine democratic and socialist movements.
The political climate was also shaped by the decolonization movements sweeping through Africa and Asia. Newly independent countries were searching for their own paths, often looking towards socialism and communism as alternatives to Western capitalist models. This global context of resistance and rebellion resonated with Che and influenced his revolutionary ideology.
The global political climate was further complicated by the arms race and the looming threat of nuclear war between the United States and the Soviet Union. The Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962, which occurred after Che had become a key figure in the Cuban government, exemplified the high stakes of the Cold War and the interconnectedness of global conflicts.
Amidst this backdrop, Che's radicalization was not unique but part of a larger wave of revolutionary fervor. His experiences and the geopolitical climate of the time led him to adopt a militant approach, seeing armed struggle as the only viable means to overthrow oppressive regimes and establish socialist states. Che Guevara's role in revolutions is a significant part of his legacy, but it's a legacy marred by his ruthless and often brutal methods. His revolutionary journey began in earnest when he joined Fidel Castro's 26th of July movement in Mexico. The group's goal was to overthrow the Cuban dictator, Fulgencio Batista, and Che quickly embraced the violent path to power.
Che rapidly ascended through the ranks of the revolutionaries. Initially serving as a medic due to his medical background, he soon took on a more militant role, driven by a deep-seated desire for power and control. He became one of Castro's most trusted lieutenants, known for his harsh discipline and unwavering commitment to violent revolution.
During the Cuban Revolution, Che commanded several key battles, most notably the capture of Santa Clara. This victory was pivotal in toppling Batista, but it also highlighted Che's brutal tactics and willingness to sacrifice lives for his cause. His leadership style was marked by an unforgiving ruthlessness.
After the revolution's success in 1959, Che was rewarded with significant power in the new Cuban government. He was appointed as the Minister of Industry, President of the National Bank, and head of the Agrarian Reform Institute. These roles allowed him to exert considerable influence, and he did so with an iron fist.
One of the darkest aspects of Che's rise to power was his tenure as the head of La Cabaña prison. Here, Che presided over the summary trials and executions of hundreds of people, many of whom were denied any semblance of due process. His approach was chillingly efficient, often condemning individuals to death based on scant evidence or mere suspicion.
Che's time at La Cabaña revealed his true nature. He personally signed off on numerous death warrants and took part in executions with a cold, detached demeanor. His letters and diaries from this period reveal a deep hatred for those he deemed enemies of the revolution, including political dissenters and anyone who opposed his methods.
But Che's cruelty wasn't limited to his political enemies. His writings also reveal a shocking disdain for various marginalized groups. He expressed racist views towards black people, referring to them in derogatory terms and questioning their capabilities. His anti-Semitic remarks and hostility towards homosexuals further highlight his deeply ingrained bigotry.
Despite these abhorrent traits, Che's charisma and unwavering commitment to his violent ideals drew many to his cause. He authored several influential texts on guerrilla warfare and revolutionary theory, propagating his ruthless approach to revolution.
Che's quest for power extended beyond Cuba. In 1965, he left Cuba to support insurgent groups in Congo, though his efforts there ended in failure due to his arrogance and lack of local support. This setback did little to dampen his ambitions.
He then set his sights on Bolivia, hoping to spark a broader revolution in Latin America. His arrogance led him to underestimate the challenges. The local population largely rejected him, and the Bolivian army, with CIA support, was ready to counter his insurgency.
Che's Bolivian campaign was a disaster. In October 1967, he was captured by the Bolivian army in the Uro ravine. After a brief and humiliating captivity, he was executed on October 9, 1967. His death was intended to be a deterrent to other would-be revolutionaries, but instead, it made him a martyr in the eyes of some.
Che Guevara's relentless pursuit of power and his vision of global revolution left a trail of violence and suffering. His legacy is a dark and complex one, marked by his ruthless methods and the profound human cost of his actions.
One of the most disturbing aspects of Che Guevara's legacy is his love for executions and his stark lack of human compassion. This dark side of Che is often glossed over by those who idolize him, but it's essential to confront these brutal truths to understand the full scope of his impact.
Che's role as the commander of La Cabaña prison in Havana from 1959 to 1961 is particularly notorious. During his time there, he oversaw the summary trials and executions of hundreds of people. These included former Batista regime officials, perceived counter-revolutionaries, and ordinary citizens accused of being traitors.
The trials at La Cabaña were often nothing more than show trials. Che presided over many of these, where the outcome was predetermined, and the accused had little to no chance to defend themselves. Che's approach was chillingly pragmatic. He believed that eliminating enemies swiftly was necessary to consolidate the revolution.
Eyewitness accounts and historical records paint a grim picture. Che personally signed off on death warrants and frequently attended executions. His demeanor during these events was cold and detached. Some accounts suggest he took a perverse pleasure in the act of killing, seeing it as a duty rather than a moral dilemma.
One particularly infamous event was the execution of Eutimio Guerra, a peasant accused of betraying the revolution. Che himself shot Guerra in the head, reportedly without a moment's hesitation. He later wrote in his diary, "I ended the problem with a .32 caliber pistol, in the right side of his brain. His belongings were now mine." This incident is just one of many that underscore Che's ruthless disposition.
Che's writings and speeches reveal a deeply ingrained belief in the necessity of violence. He once stated, "To send men to the firing squad, judicial proof is unnecessary." These procedures are an archaic bourgeois detail. Such statements reflect his complete disregard for human life when it came to advancing his revolutionary goals.
His lack of compassion extended beyond his revolutionary enemies. Che's writings also include numerous derogatory remarks about various ethnic and social groups. He expressed disdain for black people, calling them indolent and lazy. He had little regard for indigenous people, whom he considered inferior, and he harbored anti-Semitic sentiments as well.
Additionally, Che's homophobia was well documented. He believed that homosexuals were deviants and did not belong in the society he envisioned. His actions in Cuba reflected these prejudices, as the revolutionary government under his influence persecuted and marginalized gay individuals.
Che's willingness to use extreme violence and his blatant disregard for human life are integral parts of his legacy. His actions were not isolated incidents but part of a broader strategy to instill fear and maintain control. The mass executions at La Cabaña were a means to an end, ensuring the revolution's survival by eliminating any potential threats.
This ruthless approach left a lasting impact on Cuba and beyond. While some may view Che as a symbol of resistance, it's crucial to acknowledge the countless lives destroyed by his brutal methods. His legacy is a stark reminder of the dangers of ideological fanaticism and the human cost of revolution.
As we continue to examine Che Guevara's life, it's important to confront these darker aspects of his character and actions. Understanding the full scope of his brutality provides a more balanced and accurate portrayal of his legacy. Che Guevara's revolutionary activities ultimately led to his downfall in Bolivia. After leaving Cuba in 1965 to foment revolution abroad, his attempts in the Congo failed miserably due to logistical challenges and a lack of local support. However, his ambition remained undeterred, and he soon turned his attention to Bolivia, seeing it as a potential catalyst for a broader Latin American revolution.
In Bolivia, Che believed he could ignite a movement that would spread throughout the continent. He arrived in late 1966 with a small band of Cuban and Bolivian revolutionaries. However, from the start, the campaign faced significant obstacles. The Bolivian Communist Party did not fully support him, and the local population was largely indifferent or even hostile to his cause.
The Bolivian army, with substantial assistance from the CIA, was well prepared to counter Che's insurgency. Che's guerrilla force was ill-equipped, lacking adequate supplies and reinforcements. His health, always precarious due to his chronic asthma, deteriorated further under the harsh conditions of the Bolivian jungle.
By October 1967, Che's situation was desperate. His group had been reduced to a small number of exhausted and hungry fighters. On October 8, 1967, they were ambushed and captured in the Euro ravine by Bolivian forces. Che was wounded in the skirmish and taken prisoner.
The following day, on October 9, 1967, Che Guevara was executed in the village of La Higuera on the orders of the Bolivian government, under significant pressure from the CIA. His last words are reported to have been, "Shoot, coward, you are only going to kill a man." His death was meant to be a clear message to other revolutionaries and insurgents.
Despite the intention to make an example of him, Che's death had the opposite effect in many circles. It transformed him into a martyr and an enduring symbol of revolutionary struggle. His image, particularly the iconic photograph taken by Alberto Corda, became a powerful emblem of resistance and rebellion worldwide.
The immediate impact of his death was significant. In Bolivia, the insurgency he had hoped to spark fizzled out, and the remaining guerrilla fighters were either captured or killed. The Bolivian government, backed by the U.S., felt a temporary sense of relief from the threat of further revolutionary uprisings.
However, Che's legacy quickly transcended the immediate political ramifications of his death. He became an icon for various leftist movements around the globe. His writings on guerrilla warfare and revolutionary theory continued to inspire future generations of activists and insurgents. The image of Che, with his beret and intense gaze, became a symbol of anti-imperialism and radical change.
Over the years, Che's image has been commercialized and romanticized, often stripped of the harsh realities of his actions and beliefs. It's a bitter irony that many people who wear Che Guevara shirts today would likely have been despised by him. Che's writings and actions show a deep-seated intolerance for various groups, including the very minorities, free thinkers, and social activists who often sport his image.
Indeed, Che's racist, anti-Semitic, and homophobic views are well documented. He expressed disdain for black people, referred to them in derogatory terms, and doubted their capabilities. He also harbored anti-Semitic sentiments and was hostile towards homosexuals, reflecting a narrow and bigoted mindset that contradicts the inclusive ideals many of his modern admirers espouse.
Che's willingness to use extreme violence and his blatant disregard for human life are integral parts of his legacy. His actions were not isolated incidents but part of a broader strategy to instill fear and maintain control. The mass executions at La Cabaña were a means to an end, ensuring the revolution's survival by eliminating any potential threats.
This ruthless approach left a lasting impact on Cuba and beyond. While some may view Che as a symbol of resistance, it's crucial to acknowledge the countless lives destroyed by his brutal methods. His legacy is a stark reminder of the dangers of ideological fanaticism and the human cost of revolution.
In Cuba, Che's legacy is still celebrated officially, with monuments, museums, and even currency bearing his image. However, the darker aspects of his rule, including the brutal crackdowns and executions, are often overlooked in official narratives.
In the broader context, Che Guevara remains a controversial figure. He is simultaneously hailed as a symbol of defiance against oppression and criticized as a ruthless enforcer of violent ideology. His life and actions continue to provoke debate about the ethics of revolutionary violence and the true cost of radical change.
Understanding Che Guevara's lasting impact requires grappling with these complexities. He is a figure who embodies both the idealism and the brutality of revolutionary struggle. His legacy serves as a reminder of the dual-edged nature of revolutionary fervor, capable of inspiring profound change but often at a devastating human cost.
As we conclude today's episode, we hope we provided a comprehensive view of Che Guevara's life, actions, and the lasting impact he left on the world. It's a legacy that remains deeply divisive, reflecting the enduring tensions between idealism and reality in the pursuit of radical change.
Thank you for joining us on this dive into one of history's most polarizing figures. Remember to rate, subscribe, and share the History AI podcast. Your 5-star reviews help us reach more people and continue to grow.
And don't forget, you can suggest topics through our social media. We love hearing from you. Also, check out our new merchandise. The link is in the show notes. And remember, every episode is evergreen, so you can come back and listen anytime.
Until next time, I'm Chuck.
And I'm Marco. Stay curious.
Discover the dark, enchanting world of shadowed journeys, the tales of Jordan and Squishy. Follow Jordan, a seemingly innocent girl with a hidden power, and her loyal companion Squishy, who reincarnates into different animals after each battle. Venture into the ominous depths of the Whispering Woods as they face fierce creatures and uncover ancient secrets. Will Jordan succumb to the darkness within, or will she find the strength to forge a new destiny? Perfect for fans of dark fantasy and epic quests, this spellbinding tale will captivate and leave you pondering the fine line between hero and villain. Dive into Shadowed Journeys today. Available on Amazon now.